My name is Jennifer Costa. I am a child life specialist at Friends of Karen. So I have been in the field for close to 20 years. And just a little background, I worked at Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital of New York Presbyterian for about 8 years. I've been working for Friends of Karen for since 2012. And it's a nonprofit that covers the tri-state area. So we cover pretty much all of North Jersey. We cover parts of Connecticut, all of Westchester, all of New York City, and all of Long Island. So we work with 18 hospitals, providing advocacy, financial support, emotional support to the families. So my role there is to work with the kids that are both patients and siblings. Sometimes it's just the sibling. And we go into the homes for in-person sessions and also do virtual sessions. We have groups that we run. Our social workers also run groups for the parents and caregivers. And we cover, like I said, it's based off where you live. So it doesn't matter what hospital you're treated at. So I've had kids that have gone to treatment in Texas, but live in New Jersey, and I can still see them and their families. And everything is free for the families for service. And we have 2 art therapists, 2 child life specialists, 8 social workers, and then a big staff that does all of our fundraising to provide services and financial support for the families. So my information's on there. I think it's a great resource to have. We often do school visits. We work with a lot of teachers and guidance counselors in hospitals to make sure that we're providing the best care for the families possible. So that is just a little background. I also teach at Bank Street College in New York City and Montclair State University. So today we are going to look at the unique needs of siblings and friends of a child with cancer and the depth of the impact on the entire family. One thing I should mention about Friends of Karen too is we see children 21 and under, so we go all the way up to 21 years old to work with those kids. We're going to understand the different developmental stages and how to provide developmentally appropriate support from infants all the way to young adults. And then I'm going to look at provide some tools to utilize both in a classroom setting and beyond of things that you can do with children that you may be working with. Just to get a show of it, how many of you work in a hospital? Okay, so if you have a hospital, what about at school? Okay, community setting, nonprofit. Okay, perfect. So get that. And then, like I said, I'm going to provide my information at the end. Rachel's going to be sending out a book resource list that I've been creating, as well as some classroom activities or group activities that you could be using with the people you work with. So the impact of cancer on the family. So as we've heard all day, it impacts the entire family. And for siblings specifically, it is a range of emotions for them. So you'll see siblings that are feeling guilty and insecure and jealous and scared and really sad. Often those emotions are going to overlap at any given time with them. And it's extremely important to be validating their emotions and letting them know that they're allowed to have those feelings. So one of the big themes I feel a lot with the kids I work with is I don't want to cause my parents any more worry. I don't want to be another stress. And so making sure they know that they're just as important, because there are the changes in the family dynamic where the parental focus is going to shift to the sick child and what they need for that. So one of the things I talk a lot about with kids is, each of you are unique, and so your needs are unique. So you're going to be parented differently, but your love is equal. So your parents love you equally, but they have to shift how they are parenting you because you're all different and your needs are different at different times. There's often a major disruption of routine and activities for kids. It's important for them to know who is going to be there to help them, what is their consistent routine, understanding adult things. So sometimes the assumption is, they should understand why they can't have friends over, but it needs to be told to them. Your brother or sister's, white counts are low, so right now they can't be around a lot of people. And hopefully soon we'll be able to have friends over. Currently, I have a family I'm working with whose son just had a bone marrow transplant, and all 3 kids are being homeschooled right now because the parents are so worried about bringing infection into the home. So they're all homeschooled, and it's disrupted them a lot with their normal routine, but it's consistent daily, and they know now what to expect each day, which has been helpful for them. So when possible, you'll hear me repeat this over and over, but routine to be kept as normal as possible is really, really important. One other thing I also like to say is just having any one-on-one time with each individual child when possible. And it could be something as simple as the high and low of your day. So what was your high? What was your low? Checking in, watching, an 8-minute episode of Bluey, or just a FaceTime from the hospital if you're at the hospital, but just a check-in where you're focused on that one child can go a long way. So now we're going to dive a little bit into child development. One of the most important aspects for those of you that are familiar with child life is child development and knowing a child's developmental age and their background so you can create a plan of care specific for them. So we're going to go through each stage of development and kind of look at typical milestones, the impact cancer can have, and then some considerations and things that could be supportive. And even though the stages can look very different, there's a lot of like overlap and repetition of things, especially the routine and things like that are helpful for all ages. So for infants and toddlers, so we're looking at like 0 to 3, their attachment to primary caregivers, they're beginning their language development, they're smiling and interacting socially. The early motor skills are crawling, walking, object manipulation. When a brother or sister gets cancer, they're not going to understand at this age exactly what the illness is, but they'll be able to sense that there's a change in the dynamics of the household, whether it's the stress of their parent, people being kind of missing, and they can feel frustrated with these changes. So here it's really, really important to provide consistent care and reassurance to maintain a sense of safety. And I can send all these charts out to you guys. So if you don't want to have to take pictures. So yeah, I have it. So I'll make sure Rachel sends it all to you so you don't have to do that. Just because I know I like a good chart too. But providing consistent care and reassurance for their safety and stability and ensuring their emotional and physical needs are met. Here, it is really important to try to have a consistent caregiver for them. So even if you are going to be at the hospital, having another family member or the other parent or a babysitter or somebody that's consistent for that child. You can also, especially for the younger ones, provide some type of object, whether it's a lovey or stuffy or, a parent's shirt that smells like them, like things like that can help them feel that attachment if their parent is shifted. I know COVID has changed a lot of the rules in hospitals, but I do know for a few of my families that had kind of newborns, but then another child sick, they would make exceptions to have the newborn be able to stay also with the parent at the hospital, but that's not always the case. That's going to vary by hospital. For preschoolers, so they are developing their language skills, they have simple sentences, they're learning a lot about emotions at this time and about empathy. They're running around, moving, a lot of imaginative play and curiosity. For having a cancer diagnosis, they may be confused or feel guilty. They are not going to fully understand the illness, but they'll be able to sense, again, a change in the household. They can have fears of abandonment and worry about their own health at this age. So for this age, simple age-appropriate explanations about cancer are important. It's very hard for a lot of parents to use the word cancer. However, for a child this young, they're not only going to know what they know about cancer by what you tell them, because we have a knowledge of what cancer is, and so it's scary to say. But for them, whatever you are explaining to them in the simplest of ways can be what they know. Being honest is really important. Making sure they know that it's not their fault. So this is a real big age of magical thinking where they think that maybe they caused it or someone caused it. So, I hit my brother and he got sick, or I told him to go away and then he was at the hospital, or so different things where they may make up in their head what happened if you don't share that with them. I like to use, this is when I'm going to move around a little bit. I had these like little cells for like leukemia with like a cancer cell. So for this age group, doing like hands-on objects, I often will explain with those, and then we'll create, using the Legos that I think are in your bags, like the Legos, and explaining how cancer disrupts the cells working together. There's also a lot of very good books that will be on the list that I am going to have emailed to you as well. With this age group, consistency is, again, key for daily routines. There's going to be a lot of repetition. This is an age for whether it's a cancer diagnosis or even end of life, they're going to repeat a lot of the same questions and need to be told the same thing kind of over and over again. And so important to kind of be there and listen, provide space, encourage them to play. Play is huge for kids, and to talk about their feelings. So this is also, I brought a bunch of books that I use to kind of discuss your feelings and be able to name where you feel them, why you feel them, how you feel them, because this is the age they're really starting to learn about that. And you want them to know that it's okay to have those feelings. For 6 to 8 years old, they're in school at this point, reading and writing and learning friendships. They're developing an understanding of morality of the right and wrong. Again, with a diagnosis, there's emotional distress or confusion about what the illness means. They will experience, again, a lot of different feelings. A lot of times by this age, it can be jealousy or guilt or anger. Sometimes there's regression as well, where they may go back to bedwetting or sucking their thumb or something like that, and sometimes acting out. So where they're just needing attention, whether it's good or bad, that can happen as well. At this age, they still may think that the cancer was caused by something or someone or an action. They're not quite yet understanding that how it's happening. So for this age group, we do a lot of emotional expression, talk, play, drawing, simple and clear explanations, creating space for them to feel and open. And with this age group and before, medical play, for those of you that are familiar with it in the hospital, with playing with different medical equipment, can be really big for both 3 to 5 years old and 6 to 8 years old. I recently did a school visit and we had medical play stations set up for all of them when I was teaching about an immunotherapy that he was 5, but he had just he had to wear the Blina backpack for immunotherapy for a full month infusion. So he had a PICC line. So I went in and explained everything to the class, and we did a big hands-on session for about an hour of them really exploring and learning about that, because they're curious at this age and need to have those simple explanations. And then they were all good with it and went on with school. Providing reassurance and validation, really allowing them to talk about their feelings and encouraging them to share them. Again, this age, it's really important for the school to know. We talked about this in a lot of the sessions, the importance of that communication with the school, so they know what to look out for. Kids will act different in different areas, so having the teacher be aware to know if things are going on at school, having a guidance counselor available if needed. Some of the kids I work with will see a guidance counselor weekly. Others will just have an open door policy that they can go as needed if they're having a bad day. So kind of forming that plan. Within our organization, we get the releases for the schools so we can talk to the schools and explain what we're seeing and what's going on and what the treatment plan is and that type of thing, which can be really helpful. 9 to 12-year-olds, so the tween age group, I like to divide this group up separately. They're doing a lot of logical thinking, problem-solving skills are developing, their friendships are getting a little more complex. They have enhanced emotional regulation at this point, and they're starting to have that sense of identity. So with a cancer diagnosis, they understand that it's more serious than when they were younger, and their understanding shifts a little bit. They might start fearing illness or death or loss themselves. They can have an increased stress from feeling that they may need to take on more responsibilities in the family. Sometimes they will experience social withdrawal or jealousy or resentment, depending on the child as individual. But I know a lot of kids, especially like the 11, 12-year-olds, feel that they don't have anyone to understand what they're going through because they don't have a friend that has a brother with cancer or a sister with cancer. So for this, the open conversations and concerns are really important. They know by now at this point that cancer is caused by something other than a person. They know that it's caused with the cell switching or caused by a tumor forming. Sometimes the child themselves that has been diagnosed may blame themselves and say, like, my body did this to me, like it's my fault that I got this. There can be some difficulty focusing. They can be uncooperative, some misplaced anger as well. Again, they're worried about causing their parents more stress by this age. They often will say, I don't want to share that with my parents because I don't want them to worry more. They have enough going on. So that's really important, to be able to have an outside person for them to talk to, active listening, whether it's someone at school or someone in another place that can can meet with them and talk with them. At this point, it's really important, again, for the school to know, but also any other kind of trusted adults. So if they're on a sports team, if they have, their best friend's parents, like anyone that they may be interacting with, important for them to be made aware so they can also be helping and supporting the child through that. They also at this age can be a really active member of the conversations around cancer and around treatment, having them understand a little more about what the treatment looks like, what the side effects and those things. So with younger kids, we're going to talk about hair loss and things like that they are going to physically see. But for an age group of 9 to 12, they'll be able to understand more of like when people are very tired or when they may not be able to have friends over, they can understand it in a different way. Adolescents. So I've talked a lot about this age group today as well, but they have abstract thinking, deeper moral reasoning, a lot more independence. They're exploring identity. Peer relationships are their central focus by this age of wanting to be with their friends and having those friendships. With cancer now, they can understand like how cancer is caused and what it is going to look like. The treatment, they can ask specific questions and you want to answer them about what the treatment's going to look like. At this point, they may feel guilty or helpless. They might retreat. They may be angry. I mean, all these, there's a million feelings kids feel, and sometimes they come and go and they're up and down, and sometimes they feel a lot at once. They can also feel isolated at this age, especially if they don't have anyone else that they can relate to that has a brother or sister that has cancer. They sometimes, like they talked about earlier, may have to miss social events. So even siblings at times may have to miss things, and that can be really, really hard. This is also the stage where personal fable and imaginary audience comes in. So personal fable being like, no one can possibly understand what I'm going through because no one's ever been through it. So we see this a lot with teenagers when like they have a breakup and they're like, you can't possibly understand what I am going through, even though you're telling me you went through it. And same with imaginary audience. They may feel that everyone's kind of focusing on them and kind of looking at them and judging them with what they're going through. So at this age, it's important also to allow them to figure out who they want to tell. So I have teenagers that want all their friends to know and have that group to talk to. And I have other teenagers I work with that are like, I don't want to talk about this at school. I want to go to school and be myself at school, and I'll deal with this at home. So really being able to ask the teen what they want, what is their priority, providing opportunities for them to have their still peer interaction and support outside their home, finding ways again for parents to hopefully be able to keep their routine and activities so that they can still play in sports and still see their friends and still attend school events. There are definitely times that doesn't happen and can't happen, but trying to do it as best as possible. Again, school being aware, parents being aware, coaches being aware, and really encouraging them to know the trusted adults that they can talk to. So if you're not there, who it is as far as the parent. And for the teenagers I work with a lot, we have all of our releases, but often I'm scheduling. They have to have a parent or a adult in the house when I'm working with them, but often we're setting up things directly with their iPad or their phone, and we're talking or doing a virtual session, without the parent having to be involved, where they're just in the home, but they have that independence to reach out when they need it, or to say like, I'm having a really bad day, can we set up a session this week, and doing it that way. Okay, young adults. So now we're getting to the 18 and plus. So they have lots of increased independence at this age. They are getting into that kind of adult role. So some of them are graduating high school, some going to college, some moving away, some going into the workforce. They can struggle some with the balance of the responsibility of their sick sibling in their own life. There's a lot of feelings of guilt that will come up, and sometimes resentment. So guilt that, okay, I'm going on to college and my sibling's at home sick, or resentment that I was supposed to go do this, but now my life has to take a step back because my sibling's sick. So at this point, encouraging access to counseling, peer support groups, encouraging them to focus on their self-care and also their independence. A lot of times they'll have fear and anxiety and worry at this age, but reminding them that they also are not the parent, they're not the caregiver. Like it's their job is also to still be that 18-year-old or 20-year-old and when possible, keeping their routines on if they're in college. So right now I'm working with twins that are freshmen in college, and one of them had to take off the semester for treatment. She had a brain tumor, and her sister was still in New York City at school and would come back on the weekends to see her. But now her sister's in Florence for the semester studying abroad, and the one that just finished treatment is back at school still with some side effects. But there's definitely like a dynamic there where they're like, I wish I was with my sister in Florence, but also like I wouldn't want her to stay back here. So just all those feelings, and being able to talk them through and talk about them and figure out other things that you can kind of do if you're as your plans shift and change, how you can kind of reroute that. So now going on to kind of peer support. So working with friends and classmates and people that are experiencing this, but not on a sibling level. There's a lot of different things you can do. Like I said before, I do some school visits, or sometimes I will also just talk to the teachers and give them resources, and they can do that. Usually we ask permission from the parents of the classmates, like, can you sign a form saying it's okay for us to teach about this for your child if there's a child that's sick there. But educating it, providing age-appropriate information about cancer, and again, dispelling fears and misconceptions. A lot of times kids, especially that are younger, will think that you can catch cancer. They'll think that it's contagious. They'll be confused at what's happening. And so just really explaining those things with what it is, using different books and such, and explaining any possible physical changes that they may see. Again, most kids are just very curious when they see differences. And once you talk about it, it becomes something that becomes just a part of that child. And children now, I mean, a lot of kids are still not able to go to school through treatment, but there are some treatments now where they're going to school with treatment during their actual treatment, like with like the immunotherapy and stuff. Okay, so emotional support. So encouraging the students and friends to express how they're feeling. Again, this is always really good to do through play, drawing, writing, painting's really great. Talk about empathy during this as well, about how their classmate may be feeling going through what they're going through, and also talking about the classroom being a safe space. So it's a space that you can share how you're feeling, but we don't want to take it out of this classroom and then go talk to all these other people about it. This is kind of our group to talk about it and really share how we're feeling and make it safe for everyone. Maintaining the normalcy. So again, encouraging the students to treat their classmate as they always have. So when I was in that classroom setting recently, I talked about, like, you can still high five him, but you can't tackle him. You can sit and play with him, but don't grab his backpack where his line is. And so different ways of encouraging them to still be inclusive and participate in all the activities. If the child is not in the school because of treatment, oftentimes they'll do like a FaceTime group with them, or putting them into the classroom where they can see each other, and finding ways to kind of include them in their school life, even if they have to be at home, can be really helpful. Acts of kindness. So this can be something as simple as writing a card, having everyone write a card to send to the child at home, drawing pictures, organizing a group message, planning small supportive gestures like wearing their favorite color to school. Recently in my son's school, one of his classmates had a brain tumor, and they made bracelets, and they all wore them the entire time he was in treatment, every day. And so something like that. So it can be as simple as that, but just something where they feel like, okay, people are still thinking about me, and they can feel included that way. Practical support for families. So this is something, organizing a meal train, having friends and classmates help rides for siblings. So I'll bring your kids home today. I'll take them to dance. I'll take them to baseball. Fundraisers sometimes are done within the town, but anything that they can do, and it could be that the class parent brings home the homework for the child or something like that, or they are helping with the siblings. So anything that can be kind of concrete for the family to make things easier for them, and things that they won't have to think about. Self-care, again, explaining to kids and especially teenagers, like taking care of themselves as well, of like, especially once you're a little bit older, of what you need for yourself, whether it's doing some breathing exercises, getting out and doing some exercise outside, just watching TV, reading a book, like anything that they feel helps them to kind of relax. I know for a lot of younger kids, they'll say, I like to do art, and that helps me to relax. Classroom activities and lesson plans. So this can kind of be specific for teachers. I'm going to shoot this out as well in my email when I give everything to Rachel. But this can be, especially for older kids, kind of actually understanding cancer as like a science project. So you divide them up into groups of, you're going to look at cancer, you're going to look at what the treatment is. You can create posters, slideshows, so kind of making it into like an actual assignment in class. And then as a class during that, discussing compassion and understanding rather than being afraid of it. So as you learn about it, it can help you to not feel as scared, and it will help you with any of the misconceptions. You can do, like I said, the letters of kindness, so writing letters, doing jokes, things that you could do. You can create a kindness book where everyone writes something and then they deliver that to the child. One of the newest things that people are doing with all the technology is making those kind of social presentations where it almost looks like a PowerPoint, but it's like kind of step by step of like what my treatment was. So recently we had someone create one. One of the child life specialists, the child was in Ohio for a treatment, and his siblings didn't know where they thought he was off at Disney World with his parents having fun, and they made a social slideshow for the siblings to be like, this is actually what happened. Here's the hospital. Here's where he was. So another way to kind of include them in that. There's also art projects you can do, like hope and strength projects. I did recently with a 4th grade class, strength stones, where they're clear stones and you talk about like a word or things that help you to feel better if you're having a bad day. So it could be hope or family or, sports or anything. It could be more than one word. And you trace it, you create it on paper, and then you just glue it to the bottom and it magnifies it. So it's like a clear stone from Amazon, but very easy. And it helps kids to kind of come together and think about when they have struggles, and it helps them with that empathy piece too. So, I was able to talk about it from my perspective of working with kids with cancer. But one of the kids said, well, I get really scared taking tests, so I'm going to bring this with me every time I have a test. So ways that they can feel that they're kind of included in this too. And then another very simple one is those support chains that you used to make all along when we would do the links with the construction paper. And you can have each child write a supportive message or a wish or something on it, and then you can display it in the classroom. So those are just some simple, easy ones. I have a bunch of different ones that I will share. But those are ways that the classroom can feel a little bit more inclusive in this. Conversation starters. So this is actually kind of helping more for a little bit of older kids, but helping them if they're worried about how to start a conversation, if their classmate or friend is home. It can just be something like, I've been thinking about you. How are you doing today? I miss our hangouts. If you're up for it soon, maybe we can get together. Or even something, if they can't be there, you could even say something with this generation, especially like, do you want to binge watch a show together and then we'll talk about it on FaceTime or something like that, where, I know for kids these days, so many of them are on FaceTime with each other after school and not in person. So it can be kind of that thing of like, or do you want to play a video game and talk while we're doing it? And then, if that they're having a tough time or they're in the hospital, things like, I know that today may be hard, but we're thinking about you. And just those little things that you can reach out and have these conversation starters. And it's a good way at school to kind of role play that and like help each other to learn how to have those conversations that can sometimes feel a little difficult. And then school counselors or therapists. So again, having them available as needed, whether it's for the classroom or individuals. And again, I have some siblings, like I said, that will go weekly and check in, others that just go as needed when they are having a hard day. And then guidance counselors that will take time out to just check in and make sure that they're feeling okay those days. So those are just a few activities. And like I said, I've got a bunch of resources to send you all. So then bibliotherapy is one of my favorite things to do, kind of using reading materials to promote emotional and psychological well-being. These are just a few examples of them that I'm going to kind of go through and show you some different activities. So the first one here is Shop Talk, which is a board game that is specific for kids with cancer and their siblings. There's one specific for patients and one specific for siblings, and it's a board game where you go around and shop for things, and to get something from the store, you have to answer the question you pull. So it's all the questions are geared towards feelings and what it's like to have a brother or sister with cancer, what your fears are, different ways to get them to really open up and talk. So I use that a lot with older kids, like I would say anywhere from like 9 and up. Sometimes younger kids, I'll just change the questions around a little bit. The inside out masks I do. So I have a couple different books I'll use for this. I have a mask book. Sometimes I'll use The Boy with the Big Feelings, or The Way I Feel, or my many colored days. And when you talk about those, you talk about feelings, and I use it for a couple different things. So one is the inside out mask. This is great for like school age kids and even all the way through teenagers, where you talk about different colors meaning different feelings. So kind of like a body outline, where you have kind of a sad is blue and fear is black, and different, so on and so forth. So we talk about with the mask of like, what do you share on the outside of you? So what feelings are you willing to talk about, and what things are you willing to share? And they use those colors on the outside and design it however they want. And then on the inside of the mask, they put any of the things that they don't share with other people. So feelings they may have that they're not willing to talk about or they don't want to share. And then sometimes that can lead to you talking with them about it and how they can maybe start to share those. The Worry Warrior, I also think of him as like just a little fun guy, but The Rabbit Listened is one of my very, very favorite books. This is great for bereavement too, but it's just great for anything in general. And it is about a boy that had something break and he got really upset, and all these different animals tried to help him by doing different things. But it was the rabbit that came and just sat and just listened to him and let him kind of process through his feelings. So often with kids, I'll have them create their own little animal. Like what would you create if you needed someone to listen to you? So this one says, I made an elephant because they have big ears. They'd be able to listen really well. So, and with that, you can, create that and have them have that. And sometimes I'll use, after that, the book Breathe Like a Bear, which is all different breathing exercises. And I'll have them like lay down and put like the model magic on their stomach, and we'll do like slow different breathing exercises so they can actually physically see themselves slowing down their breathing, and helps to calm them down. So that's a great activity. The coping box is a great way to talk about things that you find helpful. So it can be affirmations, things you like to do. So this one is one of the little 8-year-olds I'm working with, and she put, use a stress ball, listen to music, dance, think about someone you love, talk to an adult, slowly count to 10, write in a journal, draw a picture, do something you love, hug my stuffed animal. So she was creating those, and so she keeps that in her room. So if she's having a hard day, she can go to it without like a parent's permission, where she has her own set. You can also use it as a worry box. There's a great book called The Worry Box, where it talks about putting worries into something to be able to let go of them. And then you can create your own worry box, either with something like that or with a tissue box, or they have these worry monsters where it has the zipper and they eat the worries and they stay in there. So that's another great resource. And then What's Inside My Head. This is one of my teenagers that was talking about like feeling very jumbled in his head of everything, and kind of creating like, here he created like a wall of trying to focus on the good things and like setting aside like the hard things that he was feeling, and creating a barrier so he could focus on school without the other stuff. So that's another great one. Invisible Strings, I'm sure most of you know this book, but this is a phenomenal book about separation and it can be used also at bereavement, but it's about when you're separated, how you're all attached by an invisible string with anyone that you love. So often with kids, we'll either create our own hearts, or in this case, this little boy did one for everyone that he could think of, and then he wrapped all the strings individually around that as being, so you can see that you're just connected to everyone. And then the body outline kind of goes along with the mask. This is great for little kids too. And you can use any feeling book, and then something like this, or you can use it on here. And again, especially for younger kids, kind of helping them recognize when they're feeling feelings where in their body. So where do they feel them, and recognizing like that stomach ache is actually maybe because you're scared or you're nervous, and helping them to really talk about that. And I like to use that one kind of early on when I'm meeting families, and then we go back to it to see how things shift over time and how things have changed through their treatment. So these are just a few of the activities. I brought a couple other books and a couple other emoji stickers and different things that I use. But I wanted to give you some hands-on ideas. And again, my contact information's here. That's my work cell phone, my email, and then I have some just resources here of some really good research articles on working with siblings and supporting them through treatment. So thank you for being here at the end of the day.